What is up, Nuggets? It's your boy, Killer Pizza, here with a brand new video for you rascals and rapscallions out there. I know a lot of you are used to me putting out videos on Sunday, which is tomorrow, and I still have plans to do so, but I'm going to do this video today. We're going to consider kind of a bonus video because yesterday, the 2022 version of the Texas Chainsaw Massacre came out, and you know your boy wants to talk about it. So I'm going to do kind of a non-spoiler synopsis, then get into the spoilers because I definitely want to talk about a lot of things I've seen in this movie. And yeah, something I need to point out before I start is a lot of people, for some reason, are really against this film coming out. And it's like, I'm really against like remakes and reboots and stuff like that myself, certain ones, most of them. But I feel like people that are talking like this haven't rewatched the entire series much. And I actually did recently. I have these for reference. You know, I'm a physical media guy, so I recently got done watching all 8 of these films, and I gotta say, something I've always known about these films, not all these Texas Chainsaw Massacre movies are good. I'd say only half of them are really worth watching. There's a lot of stinkers in this franchise, and the timeline and continuity of all this is fucked. It's worse than the Halloween timeline. So, yeah, I'm going to try to explain that to you guys real quick, just to make it a little easier. Bloody Disgusting put out this pretty cool photo of the timeline, which you can see right here. And I'll explain it real quick. Pretty much the first timeline is the 1974 original, followed by Part 2, followed by the Texas Chainsaw Massacre 3 Leatherface, and then followed by the Texas Chainsaw Massacre 4 The Next Generation. And then in our next timeline is the timeline of the reboots, where the second reboot, 2006's The Beginning, comes before 2003's Texas Chainsaw Massacre. And then in our third timeline, we have the remakes where we have Leatherface. The most recent one comes first, with the original in the middle, and then Texas Chainsaw 3D coming last. And now in the final timeline, we have what they call the Legacy timeline, which is the original to about 50 years later, where we are right now at the new Texas Chainsaw Massacre. Got all that? Great. All right, so anyways, I'll get into this a little bit. There's not going to be much for me to give in this non-spoiler review. I tried to record this once, and I just started giving away spoilers, so I'll give a bit of this plot. We got 4 hipsters, millennials, who move into this old Texas town of like Harlow, I believe it was. It's never made clear what their plans are, but it sounds like they're trying to revamp the city, move a lot of other hipsters in, and kind of have their own hippie community. And in the troubles of trying to get everything together before the sponsors and bank people will come, they find another house, one final person living there, this older woman who claims she still has her deeds on her old orphanage, which they claim they bought it out and the bank should have kicked her out. And these kids are being kind of dicks about it. And we find out in this orphanage she has one orphan left, and that is Leatherface with no mask. That's the first time we see him, though it doesn't really show his face. We get into some conflict with that situation, which leads into Mr. Leatherface going a little bonkers like he normally does, and we lead into a non-stop Texas Chainsaw Massacre. Honestly, I know I was going to try to make this spoiler-free, this part, but there really isn't that much to say for a non-spoiler version of this 2022 movie. This is a pretty cut-and-dry film. This is like Slasher 101, like, yeah, there's not much to it. This is kind of a popcorn movie. It's very fun. I will say something a lot of people complained about leading into this. They seen that clip from the trailer of all the kids on the party bus saying you're gonna get canceled, bro, with their phones up to Leatherface. And it was funny to me that a lot of, and not to backtrack, but I will get into that scene in the spoiler part because that's pretty awesome. But I'm surprised so many people were against that. Like, oh, I don't want to see. Like, they didn't want to see Leatherface mixed with these new kids. I don't know about you guys, but this is the 9th movie in the franchise, and I was pretty excited to see a different take on it. Like what we could have gotten with Jason in Manhattan, like something like that. You know, it was kind of nice to see how would Leatherface act to a newer generation, 2022, because yeah, most of the movies in this franchise come before the original, which would be the 60s or 70s, or directly after, which are in the 70s or 80s, or even 90s. I think the most recent one takes place in the 90s, which would be Part 4. But I know this is all very confusing. But If you're looking for a reason to watch this, before I get into the spoilers, I will say this was a really fun popcorn movie. This was probably one of the goriest Texas Chainsaw Massacre films I've ever seen. Though I'm more of a fan of practical effects, I did think the CGI effects were pretty good. They were used pretty well. And yeah, this was shot very well, very good cinematography. I don't care too much for the story or the setting the whole time, but I do like how it plays out, if that makes sense. Uh, so fuck it, let's just get right into the spoilers. Spoiler alert, everybody! Ah, look out, spoilers! So going back to the deed when they get into town, these hipsters with the old woman who looks like it's Leatherface's mom, she ends up having a heart attack and dying on the way to the hospital. And this is where Leatherface kind of loses his shit. He ends up because they left in like this paddy wagon, and he ends up killing one of the cops in the back after his mom dies. And this is fucking awesome. This is one of my favorite parts of the movie, and it's CGI and it still looks really good. The cop is kind of like sitting across from him, yelling at him to calm down because Leatherface is going crazy. Leatherface reaches out, he grabs his arm, snaps it, breaks his arm, takes the hanging out bone out of his arm while holding his broken limb, and stabs it into this cop's throat. And there's blood everywhere. This is so brutal. He shoots the cop's gun that's in his hand through the front seat, killing the other guy. And this just goes crazy. You got the main guy in town that's trying to take over this town, not take it over, buy it out and start this new town. His girlfriend rode with them to make sure the mom was okay, and she ends up getting killed too. But she's the one that see the first glimpse, like looking through this rear view mirror. And this is another point of like the good cinematography, which is amazing in this film. She looks back and sees him hacking off his own mother's face and puts on the mask. And a lot of people were saying bad stuff about this mask before watching this, just seeing images. Granted, I like all of the Texas Chainsaw Massacre masks. I mean, some I like better than others, but this one was pretty cool in the sense it looked like human skin. And so now we have this big party bus show up. We got this big hipster party with live bands and everything, which again is something I kind of actually liked from this. It's something different from the series. You know, I know that these films are known for having like the backwoods of Texas and these dirty, just grimy, hot, sweaty looking places, and that's like a staple of the franchise, which you get a lot of this in this ghost town. But it's kind of nice to see this newer generation kind of play out and see more of a modern take, because we haven't had, like I said, a modern take of this film. So the party bus shows up with all these hipsters, and we're starting to get remorse from a couple of the main characters. One of the main characters, it's two sisters that are the main. It was the two sisters, the lead guy and his girlfriend were the original four that showed up. And the younger sister is clearly the more likable one. She's a lot more nice and soft-spoken and doesn't want to be in this town. And they add this weird backstory to her, though, that she was a part of a school shooting, which I guess it's pretty nice to get through the layers of like how that would affect somebody trying to deal with violence. But I thought that was a little shoehorned in. And the older sister is made out to be a sympathetic character later on as the killings get going. But this girl was a total bitch in the beginning of the movie, talking shit about the townspeople that were left and pretty much telling the grandmother to like just grab her shit and take off. The bank's taking your house. So how are we supposed to feel sympathetic for her? That's a weird issue with all the Texas Chainsaw Massacre movies. Though Leatherface does a lot of really bad things, he's always meant out to be sympathetic, which I don't mind in some horror movies. Just every single one, for the most part, you have this layer to him that he's got the brain of a child and doesn't know any better. And especially when you add characters so dislikable, besides like one of them in this film, or two, I should say, it's kind of hard to root for the final girls, because they start this film out with them being so bitchy, then try to make them come off as good in the end that you don't want to see them die. But I'm thinking, I remember what I just seen 30 minutes ago, so I don't give a shit if this girl dies or anything. Yeah, I will say this is one of the goriest Texas Chainsaw Massacre movies I've ever seen. I'd say maybe the two reboots and part two are probably, yeah, the two reboots, 2003, 2006, and part two, and then this one are probably the four goriest out of all nine of them. Anybody who is or disliking or hating on that bus scene, you have to watch this movie. Because right after the guy says, you're going to get canceled, bro, oh my God. Leatherface literally cuts everyone on this party bus up with a chainsaw. When I say everyone, there's 20, 30, 40 people. Good luck on a kill count, Dead Meat James, if you do one, because there's lots of bodies on this bus. It is awesome. Though it's CGI, he's literally cutting people in half, 2 people at a time, cutting their heads off, limbs, throwing limbs everywhere. There's blood all over them, and the way they have like the party bus lights, like you guys seen in the trailer, that purple, blue, dim light, it looks so fucking cool with like the blood splattering everywhere. It looks like a nightclub almost, and that alone made this movie awesome. He ends up taking out the lead guy, and he like swings like the machete or a knife or something, and you can't really see he's got his back to him, and this guy ends up fighting for his life and walking out in the rain to try to get away. And when he turns to show his face, the whole side, like a fish hook, is ripped up, and the guy dies almost right after. He just had enough strength to walk out and have 2 people kind of see him and see the gruesome cut, which those effects looked amazing. I don't remember if it was practical or CGI, honestly, off the top of my head, but it looked fucking cool. We have another character in here. He's kind of like a Texan, a good old boy driving around in a pickup truck. He works in the auto shop in the town. He's one of the last people there, and he had a pretty gruesome death too. A Leatherface just hits him with like a sledgehammer in his knee. You watch his whole leg bend back, and then kills him from there, and it's absolutely brutal. That's something I really appreciate from this film, though, that there's a lot of characters that you would think are going to make it to the end. This guy included. I thought he was going to be like the final guy fighting off Leatherface. They do a really good job of taking these characters, whether you like them or not, and making you think they're going to last till the end. And then they get killed out of nowhere in the most gruesome way. Leatherface literally kills every single person in this movie except for one. And the way it ends, you don't even know if that person even survives. Like, this is an absolute bloodbath. Like I said, shot really well. The kills were top notch. It was a fun movie. I didn't care for the characters too much, though they were memorable. I really didn't like how Leatherface was in the orphanage like that. I get it's been years later, but like, what happened to the old house? Like, I don't understand it. And here's something I want to point out. This is me nitpicking a little bit, but I don't normally care about the time frames in between the films, because a lot of these films could be made timeless. You could just be, I mean, look at like a regular TV shows. A lot of characters never grow up on camera. They stay the same age. Like, I mean, look at The Simpsons. I know that's a cartoon, but forever the same age. You could do that with certain movies. But as of where, but they talk about it a lot, that it was 50 years ago, 50 years ago. And I'm saying, unlike franchises like Nightmare on Elm Street, where Freddy's already dead, or Friday the 13th, where you could argue Jason's been a zombie since, part 6, technically? I mean, when it comes to like Michael Myers or Leatherface, they're just modern men and humans. So how old is Michael Myers or how old is Leatherface? Because if Leatherface was bare minimum 18 years old, he's late 60s, he's pushing 70 years old in this movie. And just the way he moved and everything, it's like a 70-year-old man doing all this. And then how old would that make his mother? And that leads to another point. We have, what's her name? What was her name from the... Sally, I think? From the original girl that survived from the first. She comes back, and they try to make her out to be some badass, and she's hears that he's back. Oh my God, Leatherface is back. She gets her shotgun, her cowboy hat, and gets in her Bronco, and she's ready to go kill him. This is so obviously a ripoff from Laurie, from the remake, the new Halloweens. And though this had to have been done a million times in a million horror movies, this was shoehorned in, and I think it did not need to happen. She dies too. What was the point? She comes back, we gotta fight him after 50 years. And she comes back, and the final girl's like running, and she's laying there half dead. Sally, if I'm getting the name wrong, that's just what we're going for this one. She's laying there, she's like half dead. She goes, "You gotta get him, you have to kill him or he'll haunt you forever." It's like, bitch, what the fuck are you talking about? He's gonna haunt you forever. For one, if he stayed in the Sawyer's house this whole time, why not send the real police out there, not the crooked Texas cops? Get the state troopers, get the army out there, and go find this guy. And if not, it looks like Leatherface has been staying in this little Texas town for 50 years, not really bothering anybody. He really doesn't kill people until they show up. Nobody else is around. So it's like, what are you talking about? He'll haunt you forever. I go, 50 years went by. He stayed where he was at. He never came back and haunted you or nothing. You could have went back and did something all this time if he's been in the same damn town. It just doesn't make any sense. And a lot of times I say things don't make sense in a horror movie, and it's a horror movie based on shit that would never happen in the first place. But this is a pure movie that could happen. A guy could cut somebody's face off and cut people up with chainsaws. So where is the fantasy in this if you're going to go to that direction? There's my rant about that. If that makes sense to you guys. He'll haunt you forever. Bitch, it's been 50 years and he hasn't touched you. And you stayed in the same town. Like, nothing's going to happen. We have a scene at the end where you think Leatherface is dead. He falls into this big pit of water, which I had to point out, it's pretty cool. Leatherface and Tony Montana died in the same way until he came back at the end for a nice little jump scare. Yeah, I really went off just there and ranted. And I'm trying to think if I forgot anything about this film, because I feel like I touched on most of it. And I'm trying not to make this movie go over 20, but here we go. I guess I'll just wrap it up here, and I'm going to hate that I forgot certain things, but I want you guys to watch it yourself, or watch it back, which I probably plan on doing. I will say for this, is it a good movie? Not really. It's not really a good movie. I don't like the characters. I don't really like the setting. There's a lot of holes in the plot. It's just not perfect. But what movie is? Because at the same time, it's a different approach in the city, and then with the hipsters, it's a modern take on the version. It has amazing gore. The gore, that's one of the best reasons to watch this film. Like I said, this is what they call a popcorn movie. This is one that would be really fun to have some family or friends over like horror, even if they don't like horror. Let's sit back and watch this film. I think compared to a lot of films in this franchise, this is a welcome addition. Because this could be the last time we ever see Leatherface even on screen in a movie. This could be the final one. So I was just happy to see him back one more time. A lot of these aren't good. This one did pretty well for what it was. If you go in here giving judgment, you're not going to like it. Just like the new Child's Play. They're like, we want the original Chucky, Child's Play Ray. I get it. If you don't think about that and just give it a chance, it's a pretty good movie. And I say that about Leatherface. If you just try not to get too involved into the franchise and just appreciate it for what it is. A very small layer of plots with a big old Texan boy with a chainsaw just cutting people to pieces one more time in the most vicious way possible. I love the movie. I think you'll like it too. For any horror collector, it's worth picking up when it comes out on Blu-ray or worth watching out on Netflix. And it's on Netflix. I only got Netflix just to watch this. That's it. And I'll keep it for a month and I'm gonna cancel it. So I know most of you guys have Netflix. So check this damn movie out. It's not even a Netflix movie either. I forget the name of the company that put it out. But yeah, Netflix just got the rights to air it. So in a streaming age, there's no reason anybody shouldn't check this one out. Other than that, let me know what you guys think about it in the comments below. Like, comment, subscribe. Hope everyone's having a good one. Other than that, Blood Guts Gore. I'll check you guys tomorrow. Oh, yeah, tomorrow. Killer Party. I'm doing a review of it. So fucking watch it. Anyways, Blood Guts Gore. Check you next time.